Hi, everyone, and welcome to the community call. My name is Ashley Carriaga, and I help with the operations of Casper Labs. On today's call, we'll be talking about Mainnet launch, our roadmap of major milestones, all of our incredible partners, and what's next. We are joined in today's call by Meta, Ashok, and Cliff from Casper Labs. We will have a Q&A at the end of this call, so please drop any questions you may have in the YouTube comments, on Discord, and Telegram. Thanks for joining, everyone, and I'm passing it off to you, Meta.
Thanks so much, Ashley. So very, very excited to report to everyone that I met with the Casper Association yesterday, and they approved the launch, the release of the software and the launch of Mainnet. The software is now in the hands of the validators who are updating their nodes in preparation for Mainnet launch. So we have configured the Genesis block the first Genesis block to be created on Wednesday, March 31st at 1500 Zulu. You can go ahead and observe that inside of GitHub. And the validators have accepted this configuration as well as the pre-mine. These are the accounts for all of the participants with their stake to secure the network from the validator sales that were conducted. And so without further ado, let's kind of talk a little bit about what's next for us. So for those of you that don't know me, I am Meta Parlikar, the CTO and one of the co-founders of Casper Labs. And I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves. Ashok, you want to go first?
Yeah, hi, happy to. Very excited to be part of this. A lot of hard work has been put in for almost like 2.5 years to get us to this stage. A lot of incredible people have worked hard to reach the stage. I'm Ashok here. I'm Director of Professional Services for Casper Labs. I've been with Casper Labs for close to 2 years now, a little short. I take care of enterprise engagements for Casper Labs.
Amazing. It's great. It's been a great journey, hasn't it? It's been awesome having you here in the project.
Journey. I remember the day when I was talking to Meda and I was deciding about quitting Google, where I served for 12 years. At that point in time, it looked like a big risk, and how we are going to do this. It looked like a big ask, an exciting challenge. But I'm glad I made that decision, and I'm here now. Happy to have created something which is going to last long and be there around.
Amazing. Cliff, you want to tell us a little bit about what you've done? You've been like instrumental, seminal in making this all possible.
Yeah. Thank you. My pleasure. I've been sitting here getting ready for this call, remembering my first conversations with the team. I first met Mrinal in September or October of 2018, and heard the pitch. And what's remarkable, having been a startup guy for 3 other projects before diving into blockchain, is that not every, but most startups do some sort of pivot. They change directions because the market has changed, or it turns out the problems that they were trying to solve weren't actually the real problems in the industry. And what's remarkable is when Mrinal first told me about this effort to come together to basically build the first ever fully decentralized and secure layer 1 blockchain that's also scalable, in a sense, trying to reach what Ethereum 3.0 may or may not eventually become many, many years from now. And while in the process build the first ever enterprise grade blockchain with the tooling that enterprises really want, like updates and CI/CD and others. Here we are 2.5 years later, and we're there. We're at Mainnet launch, and so it's I've had goosebumps all day. There aren't enough superlatives to describe the feeling among the team right now. Kudos so much to everyone on the team, but especially the developers that are led by Meta and Ashok, which I think number now above 30 or 35. this is all of your guys and gals' hard work, and from our side. So I was the first business hire, originally brought on board to help with our first fundraise, our equity Series A, back when Bitcoin was, I think, at 3,200. It was quite a task. Fortunately, when we closed the round in June and July of 2019, we ran up to 6,000 for Bitcoin at least, which helped us close the round. And then, the last 2 years, just so many amazing successes, challenges to overcome. I can get into some as we get going in the conversation, but just know that, while this is a tremendous, tremendous milestone and a moment to celebrate, we only really view this as the end of the first chapter, not the end of the story by any stretch of the imagination. I guess remembering back to high school and college, like the word commencement comes to mind, which connotes both the recognition and an end of one phase, but the beginning of another, the commencing. And so what an awesome commencement to be a part of.
Fantastic.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about a little bit about the launch. I'll kind of dig in as to, what does it look like? What does it mean, right? So Casper Labs, the company, has been building the software that powers the Casper network. Casper network itself is a decentralized protocol. The validators of the network ultimately control the protocol, what will go into the protocol, what will be accepted by the validators. And they really signal that acceptance very similarly as they would in Bitcoin or Ethereum. They have to update their nodes, right? Their participation, the nodes that participate in consensus need to download and install the software. And Genesis is no different, right? So while we have provided the files and the software for Genesis, it is merely a recommendation on our part, right? The Casper Association agreed to accept the work that we have put forward and allowed us to turn it over to the validators. And now the validators are basically in the process of going through their acceptance process, right? They are installing the software on their nodes. They are reviewing the Genesis block for all the account holders, and basically what we call the staking decisions the account holders have made. It's possible for everybody to see that on GitHub. And if everybody, if 2/3 of the stake agrees and is ready by tomorrow morning, which is 6 a.m. Pacific or 9 a.m. Eastern, 1500 Zulu, if we have 2/3 of the stake ready to launch, then the network will launch. And fingers crossed, I'm not counting my chickens before they're hatched, but that we will have a successful Genesis launch tomorrow morning. We are very proud of how decentralized the protocol is. And, this is a demonstration that right from the beginning, right, it's really not up to me. All I can do is ask them, encourage them to, get their servers ready so that they can be launch ready for tomorrow. So super, super exciting. We're really thrilled to be at this point. I've been kind of walking around stunned that, when I looked at that 1.0.0 package that we finally got to our first production version, it's been really a tremendous journey to get here. So speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about, our journey. When you talk about a brief history of Casper, right, the original proofs were written in 2017. They came out of the Ethereum Foundation. I actually started working with Casper back then in 2017, doing some Casper research as a project manager, program manager. And as a result of some of that work, October 31st, 2018, I actually met with Renal and Scott October 21st, 2018, when they spoke with me about the opportunity of co-founding Casper Labs with them. And Renal and I decided that we would go ahead and do this. And it was on that day that we decided that we really wanted to build, the red hat of blockchain, right? Which would be an enterprise services company that would, support enterprise companies building and using blockchain technology. And then, Cliff played a big role in this. September 29, we closed our Series A funding. So from October 31st, 2018, throughout, we were just, we were operating on that founder capital, right? How many founders did we have? I think we had 7 or 8 co-founders that actually participated. Many of them were silent, but they did participate in putting that initial equity seed in to enable us and the small group of developers get us to the Series A funding. And then after Series A, we started hiring aggressively. And we had our first release. We were hiring all the way through, even with the founders' money, in October 31st. Exactly 1 year, we had our first release, and we put out our initial highway white paper. That was our initial proof of what consensus could look like. And now, bear in mind, the 2017 CBC Casper paper was incomplete. So it took a good solid year of investment on our part to actually get to a place where we had a protocol that we could start implementing. And we started implementing that protocol immediately, and then started with our initial testnet launch. And we've been in testnet for exactly one day short of a year, right before we launched the network. So a full year in testnet before. So Cliff, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the private validator sales that we did?
Yeah, happy to. Even going back to the Series A, now that we're talking about it. So, even though the private validator sales, that the purpose wasn't fundraising, it was to establish the validators that'll be part of the Genesis block. That was in exchange, those tokens in exchange for capital. So, in some senses, it was like a fundraise. So between the 55 investors that were part of our Series A, and I believe the 141 participants in our validator sales, I'm sitting here thinking back on those experiences, and a few things are emerging. Right, one is all those people were taking a chance. Right, we were well before Mainnet launch. They saw a promise in the idea of what we were doing. They saw potential in the team, because as an investor myself, really you're giving money to people. You're supporting the people even more than the idea, and we have so much appreciation for that trust that people put in us to be good stewards and fiduciaries of their capital. The other thing that really comes to mind is just how distributed these efforts have been. It wasn't just 1 or 2 people or funds saying, let me just give you all the money, and then we'll take all the benefit if you guys are successful. I can't think of certainly no other project that I was a part of where at the Series A stage, 55 participants came in, and I think, and then also on the validator sale, there isn't. Certainly not a majority, but even a plurality participant, and I think it speaks volumes to what we are trying to do at Casper, which is decentralization among or before really anything else. That we're building a global project. It's going to take lots and lots of people at every stage, and this theme kind of has carried it out through our advisor program, where we have over 50 advisors. In so many ways, really empowering a large swath of people who then can help power the network as well. And some of I can't really name all of them because I don't want to be here all day, but from Taryn Pizer, our board chair, to digital strategies, to Rocktree Capital, Hashkey, folks all over the world that have been continual supporters of this project. We can't thank you enough for all your support. It does feel like 2 decades ago, even though it wasn't. Our Series A was only less than 2 years ago. But it's crypto, right? Things, it's like camp where a day's a week, and it's really great to be at this moment to have been good stewards of the capital that we've been fortunate enough to receive. To put it to great work, and to be where we are today.
Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more. And obviously, these were validator sales, but they did absolutely help us, get all the work done, hire the people we needed to hire. And we are so grateful to everyone in the community, for their trust and support, because even our token sale, did take place. The Casper Association token sale happened before the Casper Association launched the network, right? And so again, like it or not, there was a leap of faith from those participants, from the community members. So we're so grateful. We're not there yet. I'm one to not count her chickens before they're hatched, but I do feel very confident that we will be launching tomorrow morning. So very, very exciting indeed. Let's talk a little bit about like some of the things we've done during that time. Cliff, do you want to, share a little bit more about all of the tremendous business development work that you have been doing along with Neil and Ashok? I personally believe that if you want to build a fantastic company, you can't do it with just technology, right? I'm a technologist, right? I'm all about building products, building terrific technology, but I have seen this over and over again, that without fantastic strategic execution and those relationships, that technology is not going to be picked up and used by business, right? It's not going to be used by adopters. And so for me, when we decided to found this company, I was very, very cognizant of, Renal's ability to bring that to bear and your ability to bring that to bear, right? And so yours and Scott's and everybody on the board and our investors and our advisor group. So let's talk a little bit about just the tremendous work that, the BD team has done.
Yeah, thank you. That same theme of it takes a village, or in this case, like it takes a planet, carries beyond investors and advisors to partnerships. And so when we think about partnerships, it's roughly divided into two groups. Business development relationships with companies both in and outside of the blockchain space that work to support us and almost always to support all the partners in those relationships. So you see on the screen, we have partners that are going to be liquidity providers, our market makers in jump trading and GSR. We wouldn't be able to go to market and be launching on many exchanges very quickly, which we'll get to in April on those announcements. But that needs to be supported by liquidity providers, and so we have great partners in Jump and GSR. Wallet providers, particularly in China and other places where the wallet isn't always integrated with the exchange. BitGo has been a tremendous partner. Bixin is a great partner. Ledger, we're working on our integration there. Couldn't do it without them. Our developer partnerships, with the developers DAO is going to be so crucial to our success. We're doing a couple really big hackathons with some big communities of developers with DappRadar and others that are coming up soon. Couldn't grow a developer community without them. Another great partnership, which we've already talked about, is BSN, the Blockchain Services Network in China, which is going to be crucial to our entry in the market over there. So all that stuff is great to find partners in the industry and outside the industry to support what we're doing. And then the other side of the partnership, the other half is really what we call our customers, our actual projects, enterprises, governments that are building on chain. And many have been working with us for months on testnet, like IPWE, Covalent, Broadleaf, Hera, and others. It's just awesome to meet enterprises who see what we're doing and say, man, where have you been for the last few years? Now I see what blockchain can really do for my business. Where have you been? But we're so glad that you're here. And then I'll leave off just with a teaser, is that the ones we've announced, like IPWE, kind of our flagship prototype, and others are amazing. But we have some incredible customers and partners that we'll be sharing with our community over the coming weeks and months. I wouldn't say we're saving the best for last, because we love the ones we're already working with, and there is no last. We're going to be doing this for years and years and years. but the number of household names, companies that almost everyone in the world has heard of, full country governments, putting entire government systems on chain. We're super excited for the partnerships that are yet to be announced right after Mainnet launch throughout this year and in the years to come.
Yeah, and if I can add a little bit to that, it might sound cliche, but proof of pudding is in eating, and any technology. I think the best thing that to happen to that technology is many people are using it, and that is something that we are seeing with Casper, is that we have incredible number of and very a unique kind of use cases that we are building on Casper technology. And all these enterprises, some of them, multi-billion enterprises, are willing to come use the technology towards making their business successful and towards their future. That is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, building the product, it's incredibly gratifying to hear the feedback from our customers about the entire offering, right? The enterprise service, the fantastic support, the features in the protocol, the flexibility the protocol brings, right? And the professional services all together, right? It's interesting because when I talk to people and they ask me like, well, what sets Casper apart? And I think to myself, I'm like, well, it's not one thing, right? You don't build a great product or a great offering with a silver bullet. A lot of times you go after a very niche use case, but I mean, there's a lot of blockchain protocols out there offering niche use cases, right? Like our niche use case really is providing enterprises and software developers and decentralized protocols the ability to govern their on-chain software, because we believe that they need some controls in order to be successful, right? So when you can distill it down, but really it's a lot more about that, right? It's like the ethos is your success is our success. So if you can't use our protocol and our software or use the protocol and our software to be successful, then we have failed, right? We have failed you as a service provider. We have failed you as a protocol provider. And so our charter and our mission is to make sure that our customers are successful. And this message really, really resonates with businesses. This is what they want to see whenever they're looking at any kind of service provider, right? Especially an infrastructure provider where you're talking about immutable transactions, right? It's absolutely critical that they be able to really trust and rely on the services and infrastructure we're providing them. So let's talk about what's next. So what's next? We're going to keep building, and we're going to be here to support the Casper Association and the community to build out the features that the association and its membership would like to see in the protocol. And we've also got the developer DAO, which is a decentralized entity that will support development of protocols on the Casper network. So if you're interested in participating in the Casper network and you're a developer, do check out devxdao.com and register to be an associate and start, filing for grants, right? So you can submit a grant for approval, and you can also submit to fulfill a grant, right? So you can sign up for open work and become a participant in the protocol and reap some rewards for your hard work. And super excited to welcome the DevDAO. I don't know if we have any DevDAO participants on the line. Let me just check here, give them an opportunity to chat.
Yeah, Meta, if I could tell a little bit of the background.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. So, we've had a few kind of taglines for Casper over the couple of years, and they still really hold. And one of the things we were telling the world is that this is really a blockchain for developers, for builders, and that meant we were building the tooling that's going to make it super easy for developers, not just the 20,000 existing blockchain developers, but the 35 million computer programmers around the world. And so the fact that we're building, everything in WASM, that people can code smart contracts on Casper in whatever language that they want, and just to make flexibility in payment codes. So it's not always the sender that pays, and continuous integration, continuous deployment and allowing for network upgrades. All of these things were under the umbrella of the blockchain for builders. And we said early along that we're going to put our money where our mouth is, or in this case, our tokens where our mouth is, and set aside the largest chunk, other than the tokens that we're going to sell into the market. The next biggest chunk of tokens, well beyond what the team gets and advisors get, et cetera, are going to be for developers to use to both continue to build out the network and for projects building on the network. And when we started to tell the developer community this, that we're the blockchain for builders and that we're putting our tokens where our mouth is, they came to us, the developer community, and said, well, if you really mean that, you shouldn't be in control of these tokens. You should let a third party that you guys don't control, that you guys aren't officers in, handle setting up the rules of how these tokens are distributed, the RFP process, the request for proposal process, the internal governance of this organization, and it should be a completely arm's length relationship. And we huddled up internally, and the first instinct was, well, wow, that's giving up a lot of control. But then very quickly we all realized, well, that's what we should do. Like we shouldn't be in control of this as Casper Labs. And so that kind of kickstarted the discussions around the developers DAO. And while the dev DAO is way more than Casper, we might be the first project that's working with them and assigning all these tokens over for them to manage and distribute. They're going to be working with many projects other than Casper. Really proud that Casper is the first and a big one. But we really find and hope the community also values that we were able to have the humility and knowledge that these aren't tokens for us to control. These do belong to the developers. And we have a great organization and partner in the Dev DAO that'll be responsible for the distribution of these to amazing developers who are going to add things to the network that we couldn't even imagine and build it out in ways, in hindsight will be obvious, but aren't yet clear to us now, and to amazing enterprises and projects that are building on the chain. So just wanted to share that bit of history and say thank you to everyone at the Developers DAO for the hard work you've done so far. The real hard work is still to come, and we're really grateful that the Dev DAO is part of this whole thing that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Renal and I believe firmly in decentralization and, and a much more egalitarian and equitable blockchain for people. And we saw what was happening in a lot of the proof of stake protocols. And we felt that the less control that, we definitely as Casper Labs, we're only the software provider, right? But even the association will not have that much centralized control. So it really is going to be very much a decentralized protocol very, very quickly, right? So we're very proud of how we were able to facilitate that on behalf of the association. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty terrific. So do we have any questions that we should field before I go into the technical update?
Yes, we do. One question from the community is, what's going on in MENA region? Why did you open up a Dubai office among other global offices? I don't think we have opened up an office in Dubai, have we, Cliff?
We technically haven't signed a lease yet, but we're really close. I think if you the general sense of the word office, which means establishing a presence there, yes, we absolutely have an actual address where people can come visit and send us mail to. That'll be in the next several weeks. But yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So when we as Casper Labs think about our future in helping enterprises build on Casper, we would love to be global from day one, in that in every country helping really anyone build, and although it is borderless, and we will if there are projects kind of from everywhere that find us, but we definitely need to crawl before we walk and walk before we run. We don't want to stumble by running too quickly. what we've done is identified, 4 major regions initially where we'll put a strong focus. And this is going to grow quickly. And again, it doesn't mean this is the only areas we're going to be putting attention. But the 4 big ones for us are the West. So that's U.S. and Europe. China is number 2, 3, and this isn't in order. This is just a list. So China 2, Korea 3, and MENA, Middle East, North Africa, is the 4th. And why the Middle East? Well, there's several things that are going on there that are like fundamental, energies that create a really fertile ground for adoption of blockchain. Number 1, things are quite centralized. Particularly in the UAE, but also in Saudi and other countries in MENA, the ruling family in each of these places, it has either runs the government systems in these places, or there's public-private partnerships. And so whether it's transportation system or the financial systems or supply chain, because of that centralization, it makes accessing the markets quite easy. They're not just simple laissez-faire capitalist free markets where you would need to go to so many different companies within a particular industry. Once you speak to the right agencies and folks within them, and you sell yourself and your product, you're kind of in, which makes market penetration easier. That's number 1. Number 2, they're really technology forward. Like the UAE in particular has for decades now really wanted to be and invested in being on the cutting edge technology and inviting the best technologies in the world to come participate. Number 3, they've been talking about blockchain for a long time. Among all the technologies that they really want to adopt, blockchain has been talked about for a few years now. So that's great. And then 4th is, while other chains have attempted to really penetrate the market, they haven't been able to do what I think we will be able to do, or hopefully we'll be able to do, because of what Meta was talking about earlier, that no other chain has quite had the offering that Casper does. And the way I like to put it when someone says, why are you guys different? Why is Casper different? It's really 2 things. Number 1 is the product itself. No other blockchain has really presented what we're presenting with all of these features that make it enterprise grade. The list I've gone through before, it's all over our website. Up until this point in the history of blockchain, it's been incredibly smart, diligent mathematicians and engineers building incredible tech, but we don't think enough attention has been put on the usability of that tech. And so when we were, in Dubai and our trips there, showing them this is the advancement in the product that we're bringing to the industry, they're like, wow, that's kind of what we've been waiting to see. And then the other part is the professional services, is that not only are we not saying here UAE, here Middle East, here wherever, here's our blockchain and here's our GitHub, go build. What we're saying is we're going to be there helping you build if you want our help. And so we have hired a managing director for the MENA region, Saeed Al-Darmaki, who I hope everyone gets to meet. He's an amazing human with great background and incredible connections throughout the Middle East. And we'll be building a team with Saeed leading it, a tech lead, some marketing, some salespeople, but we'll be hiring in the region because the projects that we do end up doing there, which we'll talk about in the coming weeks and months, will have local support, and there'll be an office, and there will be people there, even once the project has launched on Casper, for ongoing client services and customer support. I know that was a long-winded answer, and I end up saying that a lot, but I wanted to give everyone the background. That's kind of why the Middle East has risen very quickly on our list of areas to focus on, and what we'll be doing with the projects that will be coming out of that region.
Great, thank you, Cliff. The next question is, what is your strategy to maintain the momentum post-launch and post-listing to ensure greater adoption of the network?
yeah, guys, I'm happy to keep talking, but Meta or Ashok, if you want to go.
I can take this one. So, in terms of maintaining adoption and momentum for the public network, we need to be very clear that this is now in the hands of the association, right? So Casper Labs is a for-profit company that has a charter and responsibility to provide excuse me, software updates and support to the association, right? So the developer DAO ideally will, constitute the developer community that will ultimately take responsibility of the network and, in a decentralized fashion, eventually house the core developers for Casper, right? And the developer DAO is also really kind of in charge of the ecosystem, right? So the association is going to be the association's responsibility moving forward to really, and the communities, right, to drive adoption of the Casper network. We probably will start even reframing these calls because I work for Casper Labs company. So we should separate those two things and be very clear about what our role is, right? We are an enterprise services company. So Ashok, we can definitely talk about how we're going to start onboarding companies onto using, consortium permissioned and enterprise offerings that use, the blockchain technology that we've built and can leverage some of the extra security that the public blockchain brings, right, through hybrid and hybrid implementations, right? So they can maintain the benefit of privacy and still get the security of a public chain. Those are the things that Ashok's team will be very, very focused on, right? And we'll be doing a lot of business development work around that. With respect to the public blockchain, it's really up to the community. It's up to the developer DAO and these decentralized entities to continue furthering and pushing the adoption of the Casper protocol. And so, Cliff, I'll let you weigh in there a little bit too about some of the partnerships we've built up to this point and how we're transitioning that over to the association.
Yeah, I think you answered it very well, Meta. From Casper Labs' perspective, what's really going to keep the momentum going, because there is going to be a hype cycle. There already is a lot of momentum around Mainnet launch, the CoinList sale, and in May, our exchange listings. But that's going to subside eventually. And what really is going to bring value to really any blockchain is who's actually using it. And that's, I think, what's going to grow value and sustain value over time and withstand, dips in the overall market is which chains are real, like in the sense of, showing that enterprises and, whether that's startups or dApps or nonprofits or governments are actually building on the chain. And that's really going to be our focus, is that one after another, because what we don't do is just announce when we're having conversations or at an MOU. We'll make announcements once we're actually building with projects and gotten far enough along in the development work that we're ready to start talking about them. But what I'm excited about for the second half of 2021 and beyond is really to showcase big names and smaller names that are doing really cool things that are actually building on Casper. We can't, for the reason I just mentioned, we're not in a place to really talk about a lot of these yet, but I'm comfortable telling the community that, month after month and really week after week, we'll be announcing really amazing projects that are building on Casper, that are finding our solution for their particular challenges, both saving them cost, which is ultimately revenue, and having more security in what they're doing, and that's I think what's mostly going to drive value to the network over time is true adoption.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions, Ashley?
I think the other ones we can probably answer after technical update, unless you'd like to continue answering questions.
Let me give a quick technical update, and then we can go from there. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Okay, great. All right. So this technical update is for the Casper Labs core team. And so we are currently working on, our 21.04 release cycle. And this is, we've released the software. We cut version 1.0.0 yesterday. You can find it in GitHub. Some big things that you can expect to see happening is we are going to be moving Casper-Node. Basically, we're going to open source everything that we've built. So we're going to move it to Casper-Network. We're transferring ownership of the software to the Casper Association. This will likely happen this weekend just because we don't want to disrupt developer workflows midweek. So when we have a quiet time, we're going to be moving even the continuous integration, continuous build scripts, all of that is going to become property of the Casper Association under Casper-Network and GitHub. We'll be moving all of our engineering workflows and everything to GitHub. So, for those of you that are familiar, we've been working with a Jira workflow that has been more or less private, but now all of our work for the association will become public, including all of our feature requests, enhancements, and everything that will all become transparent for the community, right, from this point forward, once we move to Casper-Network. And we will be licensing it under Apache 2.0. So we'll be removing the Casper open source license, which did have some restrictions on it, and making it fully open source under Apache 2.0 as per the association's request. So I will be doing that in the next 5 days. We're very excited about this change. And of course, in the spirit of blockchain technology, that's the way it should go. Along with Casper-Node, we will also be open sourcing Clarity and the transpiler as well, because we feel that these are considerations that are very tied to the public network. And so those will also become open sourced and licensed under Apache 2.0, along with a lot of the other ecosystem tooling as well. So very exciting about that. The association has requested that we provide them with regular patches over the coming weeks. And so we're preparing our first patch for some critical fixes and scalability enhancements. That is planned for April 26th, is when we intend to stage that upgrade. I will be providing some information about the specific features and fixes in that upgrade once we open up everything and make it public in GitHub. I will describe that upgrade transparently, and this will provide validators about 3 to 5 days in order to get their systems updated before we see the token trading on May 4th, which is Star Wars Day, which I think is really cool. May the force be with us. And so Delta testnet will be decommissioned. We're not going to actively decommission it, but I will begin work on those testnet rewards. We had over 600 participants. It's going to be quite an undertaking to get everybody through KYC after I aggregate all those results and come up with the rewards. The rewards will be displayed based on IP address and public key. So make sure, that's the way I've always presented the rewards in the past, is with public key and IP address. So they're pseudonymous and you really don't know whose key is whose. So we can have a public display of those rewards. Those of you that are interested in running a node in a future testnet, the Zug testnet, that is the recommendation I've made to the DevDAO. Do go register at devdao.com, devxdao.com, to become an associate and to participate in the testnet, operation grant, right? So there will be grants for running a node in testnet. We focused a lot on getting ready for Mainnet. Now our focus is going to really turn towards just carefully designing future work and ecosystem, right? So there's a big push in getting the JavaScript SDK under test and refactoring it. We're doing some work on the Casper signer with some UI, UX work, as well as we're preparing a ledger integration. That work has been contracted by the association, and we're basically helping the association get that ledger integration done, as well as getting it code reviewed. We're also getting the Casper signer UI, UX code reviewed as well, getting that signer reviewed by Trail of Bits. We'll be engaging with them later on behalf of the association. And we're also getting some work done by Tim Roughgarden. Tim Roughgarden has engaged with the association to do a formal economic analysis of Highway Protocol. That work is underway. And we're doing some gas optimization work inside the contract runtime. Some of the other engineering work that is underway is fast synchronization, where this enables a couple of things. It'll enable state pruning for thin nodes. We know we need thin clients for the network, as well as a much more efficient joining mechanism, right, than what we have today. So you basically can ask for somebody's global state from a trusted node and then proceed forward with joining the chain from there. So that's the technical update. Ashley, do we have more questions?
Yes, let me pull up my. So one of the questions from the community, what's your approach to a decentralized digital identity?
This is a great question. So we have some folks in the DevDAO that do have really unique ideas of how to build decentralized digital identity. It's a little complicated for me to go into here, but perhaps we could look at having them come online and present their ideas, maybe like a product presentation. We are trying, I believe that they do want to keep it close to chest until it is implemented, but we can definitely talk about it. But the basic principle of decentralized digital identity, you really want to have custody, right? So it's more around the custody of your identity and who you choose to grant authorization of your identity records to, right? And so there's a couple of things that you want. You want some granularity around which pieces of information you authorize somebody to see. And you want to be able to revoke that at any point in time, right? And you want to be the one that is the grantor. These are two really big, important things, I think, are critical around a decentralized digital identity. The third thing is you can't monetize it. So the minute you tokenize any kind of identity solution, you really put the entire model at risk because now you have identity for money and you're kind of back in the same place where you are today, which is where you're selling, you're selling people's purchasing patterns for money, right? So that's basically the same thing the minute you put a token around it. It gets very, very tricky very quickly. So at a high level, that's how I kind of talk about my thoughts around digital identity. Next question.
The next question is, will there be NFT compatibility and collaboration?
So we can support NFTs. Casper Labs, the Casper Labs software presents a Turing complete virtual machine where smart contracts written in Rust and assembly script. And the association will offer the public transpiler to support Solidity contracts being moved over. The Casper Labs VM also does support Ethereum keys. So we support SecP 256K1 keys as well as ED 25519 keys. So we support both, transactions signed by either key. And we have client implementations that basically, provide a pattern of how that would work. So yes, there's absolutely compatibility in the ways that you can build bridges, even using the exact same keys, right? So you can sign not Ethereum addresses, but Ethereum keys, right? So to be very specific, your Ethereum private keys in PEM format will work with the current Casper client. And other Casper clients can basically accept transactions signed by Ethereum keys, and you can create account hashes in the global state using the Ethereum encryption with SecP 256K1 deploy signed with those keys can be basically accepted and validated by the node, right? That's available today.
And we would also be working on ERC. We already have an ERC 721 implementation. We are working on making it more robust and more complete, and also, follow up with ERC 1155.
Yeah, and I mean, to be very clear for the community, right? We are not going after Ethereum developers. I'm not they're obviously welcome, right? Like I can't really prevent anybody from doing and building it and deploying anything they really want to the Casper network, right? So I have no control over that. It's decentralized, right? So anyone that can acquire a token can go ahead and build a smart contract. We provide the tooling to do that. But I mean, if we talk about what have we built, who have we built this protocol for, right? Our primary focus really has been non-Ethereum developers, right? The Solidity transpiler is available. It's a prototype, right? There's a lot of work to be done with it. We're building a DSL for Rust, and our tooling really is much, much more guided towards folks that have been building smart contracts or building software using IDEs, right? Which is very different than the Ethereum developers workflow. The Ethereum developers workflow involves building in tools like Truffle and Ganache, right? And you simply don't need those tools with Casper, right? You don't need those tools with the virtual machine we've built. You can work with a fully integrated Rust development environment using a tool like Sea Lion, where you can build, run, and test your smart contracts directly within the IDE. And then you use a tool like Network Control to spin up 5 nodes to simulate, if you want to understand with your application how blocks are going back and forth, but you can really build and deploy and test your application without a node at all. And so we're going after a very, very different set of users. These are users that have never been exposed to blockchain, right? And that really flows with our goal as a company, which is to extend and expand and deepen the adoption of blockchain into the existing application stack for those applications in enterprise and companies that have been around for 20 years, right? And they're just not going to use Truffle and Ganache, right? That they don't understand what that is. And so those are the people that we're really going after. So while of course we're decentralized, we welcome members of the Ethereum community, but we're not actually going after Ethereum developers, and we do not see ourselves as a competitor to Ethereum at all.
Some of our enterprise customers we are working with for solving their technical problems and their business problems would need us to have NFT implementations.
Yep.
As Casper Labs AG, we would be working on that.
Exactly. Yep, that's right. And we would be happy to open source that and make it available to the association because it benefits the community. There's no reason for us to keep it to ourselves, right? I'm happy to work. And that provides greater security too for our customers that are using it to know that the software is open source, is being used more broadly, right? It just makes it harder and more robust, right? There's a question on how many tokens will be allocated to reward testers. So this is in the original Zug 500 documentation. 0.6 of total supply is allocated for the Delta testnet, the third phase of the testnet program, which is 60 million tokens, if I got the math right, I believe, yes. And that will be allocated based on duration and depth, right? So there were several, we did 11 rounds of Delta. And so we have participation information from each round. And so we'll be analyzing all of that participation data, lining up the public keys and the IP addresses, and then providing basically rewards. We'll split it up into 11 rounds. So the 60 million will be split up according to the 11 rounds. And according to the 11 rounds, we'll see how many participants we had in each round. And so you can imagine that those participated earlier when there were fewer people will get bigger slices because each round will be approximately 1/11 of the 60 million. And so then it will be divided accordingly that way. So that's the way I've done it for all the other rounds, right? So in each round, we had at the beginning fewer participants. So the people that are there earlier and participate all the way through will get a slightly larger share than the ones that joined at the very end. Other question?
Are you also going to list SFP wallet?
I have to confess, I don't know what that is. So
it's a safe SafePal crypto hard wallet.
Oh, it's a hard. Okay, so if they desire to have that, then that would be something that would go through the dev DAO. That would be a great grant for the dev DAO to see if somebody wants to pick it up and do the integration for the tokens. Yeah. I don't know that is something that Casper Labs, the company, will necessarily take on, but that is something that can be taken on by the association.
And then one more question, is Casper inflationary?
Casper is inflationary. So we're very similar to other proof of stake protocols in that new tokens are minted by the protocols. And this is what is used to reward the validators. So there is a proposed inflation rate. There is an inflation rate in the Genesis block, and it will be up to the community to determine how they would like to change that in the future. It is possible to make those kinds of changes via the upgrade process. So if the community wishes to change that in a future release, they are absolutely empowered to do so. More questions? We're 2 minutes from the top of the hour, so I'm going to call that a wrap. Feel free to catch us on Telegram for Casper Blockchain and on Twitter, and join us on WeChat, and feel free to post your questions there. Our community managers will be happy to bring any questions that, questions that are asked do come to me. So if you have technical questions, I absolutely do answer them. So don't feel like this is the only time. You can ask those questions. And we have these every Tuesday morning. So every Tuesday morning at this time, we have these community calls. So feel free to subscribe and join us on YouTube so you can get notified. And they are available for the playback on YouTube. So thanks, everyone. Looking forward to the first Genesis block being mined tomorrow. Cheers. I'll see you on Telegram. Bye.